Previously on NerdCage Live, behold!
I have been chomping at the bit to talk about this. This is a moment that is 40 years in
the early era, basically Superman 1 through 4 and Superman Returns. Superman 2 is, my opinion, by far the best one, and probably the more...
I'm kind of on the fence about both versions. So there are things that I really enjoy about the actual version.
Maybe close up there with the
casting director gave his headshot to the Salkinds, who promptly threw it in the trash.
Christopher Reeve's performance alone is just so captivating.
I can't use my likeness in Superman 2.
And gives up his powers is so much better in the Donner cut. This is the reason why it's too much.
And on top of that, I'm going to sue you.
But the Western version is still good. The Western version is still good. I am not at all bashing the Western.
Why don't you just use the
big difference I noticed, and I absolutely loved it. Okay, so you mentioned Richard Donner, so I figured this is the perfect segue to talk about the Donner cut. So, again, I've been posting this on Facebook saying, hey, I finally watched the Donner cut, and I've hit people on both sides message me saying, like, oh, wow, I never knew this version existed. Where can I find it? And I also had other people saying, well, what took you so long to watch it? Well, here's what happened. So, for those who don't know, again, the Donner cut was released 25 years later, finally. Now, here's the interesting part. The main reason why the Donner cut was released in the first place is to coincide with Superman Returns, because Superman Returns ignores Superman 3 and 4, and it's actually canon to the Donner cut version, which is really, really cool. And of course, sadly, we all know that Christopher Reeve passed away late 2004, so it was kind of like fresh in people's minds. And I don't know, but did Christopher Reeves actually see this version before he passed away, or did he not get the chance to see it?
I don't even think that they decided to do that while he was alive. I think that they made that decision afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say. So the people don't know. Yes, this is like, again, we all talk about the Snyder Cut, which is coming next year. We're really excited, but again, before the Snyder Cut, there was the Donner Cut, and again, it came in 2006, 25 years after the original movie. And again, I don't know why I let it slip by me. I don't know why. I figured maybe because I liked Superman 2 so much, like, well, why do I need to watch this other version? Well, man, after watching both movies back to back, 2 weekends back to back, it's all fresh in my head. Now I'm just like, wow. Now, when you play the Donner Cut, it says straight up in the very beginning of the film that some of the scenes were taken from screen tests, so you're going to see some, odd cuts and differences here and there and blah, blah, blah. But they also said this is the true version of what Richard Donner wanted. And of course, they said there was a little touching tribute saying, and this is a tribute to Christopher Reeve, who gave us the belief that a man can fly, and so on and so forth. And it was right there at the beginning of the movie, before the movie even starts. So I'm just gonna go right in order, because like I said, the movie's fresh in my mind right now. So there are some huge differences, and I generally like the Donner Cut version better, but like you said, there are stuff in this lesser cut that I like more. But it's interesting to compare and contrast. So right off in the beginning, the scene where the Kryptonians get put in the Phantom Zone is way different this time, and it's longer, and it's more in depth, and it's much better executed. So that's how it begins. And then now here's a huge difference here. The Donner Cut takes away the entire Paris bombing scene completely. So in the lesser version, the way the Kryptonians escape is because Superman takes the bomb from Paris into space. And this version, in the Donner Cut, it was from the first movie. It was Lex Luthor's bomb that caused the Kryptonians to escape this time. Awesome difference. I like that. I like the idea it was Lex Luthor's fault. I like that version better. And it ties closer to the first movie, obviously. And this is where you said, like this was, now you can see why it was supposed to be a one giant 3-hour movie. Superman 1 and 2. Now, the scene on the moon. Wow.
Yeah.
So in the lesser version, she rips off the badge, and then the astronaut falls to his death. In this version, he expands and explodes.
Right.
You don't see the explosion, but you see him start to blow up. So it's like, oh, okay now. So right off the hand, this version's much more violent. So the scene on the moon is much more violent this time through. Holy smoke. So Mark, what did you think of that when you saw the moon scene?
So yeah, I had the same reaction, and that kind of rings true with what Donner wanted. So Donner was really about the verisimilitude of these types of scenes. He wanted to bring as much realness as possible. What would happen if you ruptured a spacesuit? Something like that would happen. You would have a similar thing occur. Richard, what was his name? Richard Spengler or Lester? I'm sorry, I'm getting his name confused with Pierre Spengler, who was the producer. So Richard Lester actually wanted a more comic booky kind of a movie. So he undid a lot of those ideas, and he actually threw in more campy stuff, like the mission control aspect of that scene where they're in Houston, the guy, there's more slapstick stuff that's going on, and Cliff from Cheers is actually in that scene, side note. But you don't see as much of that silliness in the Donner cut because he wasn't trying to make that kind of a movie. And I think that that is the general tone of that entire movie. Like, there's certain aspects that I think Lester did better, that he executed better, but specifically that moon scene and the very beginning Krypton scene.
Yes.
Where the 3 Kryptonians are being tried. I think the dialogue there is way better. It's way more realistic. It explains who these characters are a little bit better in a more adult manner, as opposed to like, oh, you're just evil for the sake of evil, and Ursa, you do the things you do because you want to be at Zod's side. It was a much better explanation and much better executed in general. And so there are scenes here and there throughout the Donner cut that I just wish they had actually filmed those properly. Particularly the screen test aspect of it.
I'm going to get to that next.
Yeah, and we can talk about that. But yeah, there are just certain things that I'm just like, man, I wish they had just let him do those parts.
So that brings me to the next point. So this is major difference. So this version, the Donner cut, Lois Lane figures it out right away. Right in the beginning there at the Daily Planet.
Right.
She figures who Clark Kent really is. And then right off the hand, she just so in the lesser version, you had her jump into the river at Niagara Falls, which is great because I only live 2 hours from Niagara Falls, so it's pretty cool. So in this Donner cut version, she just jumps off the top of the Daily Planet, expecting to be rescued. And Clark, it was really cool what Clark Kent pulled off. He runs to the bottom, lasers the what do you call that flap there?
The awning, yeah.
Yes, and it's so pretty brutal to see. She bounces off that and then falls into the.
I laughed. I thought it was hilarious.
I was just like, wow. But I like that because here's the thing. It's just the ongoing joke is, hey, I'm Clark Kent. Put the glasses on. You take the glasses off. I'm Superman. It's so blatantly obvious in the movies, but at least in this movie, it addresses it right away that, hey, she's figured it out, instead of oh, wait a second. In the lesser version, they play it off way too long, I say.
Right.
In this version, they get right to the chase. She figures it out who he is, but then she jumps off the building, and then, of course, then she's like, well, okay, well, if he was Superman, he would have rescued me. So then, boom. So then, end of argument, boom, right there. And then, as you just alerted to, the obviously it was the screen test, and of course, yes, you can see him wearing 2 different pairs of glasses. It doesn't bother me because, like I said, they address it right away in the Donner cut. Say, hey, there's some screen tests, you're gonna see stuff, this and that. But I like the fact that instead of In the lesser version, Superman accidentally they're in the hotel room and he trips and falls and his hand goes into the fireplace.
And that was a great reveal, I thought. Like a great way to do it.
And I like the Donner cut version better where Lois Lane outsmarts Superman with a gun, puts a gun at him and says, okay, well, she fires the gun, but it was a blank and she outsmarted Clark. I loved it. I loved that reveal better.
Yeah, I don't know that I loved it better. I like both scenes. I think either way it would have worked. Mm-hmm. I particularly do like that scene though, just like because the dialogue in that is so good. Like where she's just like, the mistake I made was that I risked my life to prove that you're Superman when I should have been risking yours. And she pulls a gun out. That's sort of like a callback to like something that actually happened to George Reeves, where he was making an appearance as Superman back in the 50s, and a little kid didn't understand that was a performance, that he's not really Superman. So he like got a hold of his father's gun or something like that and wanted to see if the bullet would bounce off of him. And George Reeves had to talk the kid out of it and basically say, look, it'll bounce off me, but it's going to hit somebody else. So we don't want anybody else to get hurt. So give me the gun. Like that happened. And so I thought that was like really brilliant writing, like to kind of throw that in as like a callback to that event.
Well, also, I just love the line that you said, like, Lois, if you were wrong, you would have killed Clark Kent. And then she's like, gotcha, there's a blank.
Yeah. That was
just like,
awesome.
That was so good. I loved it. I'm sorry, the whole bumbling Clark Kent, I'm gonna fall into the fireplace.
Right.
Oh, you did that because your heart wanted to. No, Donner Cut wins this round, man. I have to. No, I like that.
Yeah, since you explained it that way, and then like thinking back about it and thinking about the performance, there's a much better, much more subtle but effective performance from Christopher Reeve there, because he's like pretending to be Clark, and then when the jig's up, he just immediately like relaxes and becomes Superman, and it's like an instant change. It's subtle, but you see it, and it's just like, man. And that was a screen test, like, so you know that like that was probably the scene that got him the gig, like. You know what I mean? Like that, like I remember watching it I rewatched it a few days ago, and I was thinking about that. Like that's probably where they were like, okay, this is our guy, because he figured out that like, okay, it's not two different characters. It's the same character, but this character is sometimes playing this other character. Yeah. And no one else got that. No, you know what I mean? Like if you look at like George Reeves or Kirk Allen or somebody before him that played Superman, they always played them as two separate people. But he was like, no, like this is actually a guy that's trying his best to pretend that he's someone else.
Yes. So, okay, now I'm trying to think of the movie in order, like the differences. So, trying to think another. Okay, so this is okay. I don't know if I'm forgetting or if I'm skipping, but I'm gonna go right into this Forces of Solitude scene.
Right.
Okay, this is the reason why you need to watch the Donner Cut, because this is much better executed in the Donner Cut. And here's the beauty about the Donner Cut: you get a lot more Marlon Brando.
Right.
And this is the reason why to watch it, because there's plenty of Marlon Brando in this version here, and the most heart-pounding scene, because just watching Christopher Reeve's performance alone is just so. It's so captivating. So the scene right before Superman gives up his powers is so much better in the Donner Cut, and this is the reason why to watch the Donner Cut.
Right.
There's a long dialogue between Marlon Brando and Christopher Reeve, and I love how it's done.
Yes.
Oh yeah, actually I am skipping part. So this part, I think, forgive me if I'm mistaken. So you also get more Marlon Brando with Lex Luthor. When Lex Luthor breaks into the Force of Solitude, you get more Marlon Brando there too. But the other Force of Solitude part where he gives up his power, Christopher Reeve starts talking and says like, hey, I've done enough for these people. I deserve a chance to live a normal life and this and that. Just seeing the emotion coming from Christopher Reeve saying like, I've had it. I can't do this more. I want to be a normal person. I want to be in love. I love her and this and that. And you see Jor-El just saying like, hey, you do this can't be undone. And he kind of says you shouldn't do this. You can't do it for her. It's not worth it. And blah 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 blah. And it's just the dialogue going between the two of them. It is fascinating.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved. It was captivating. It was fascinating. It was amazing to watch. My heart sank because, that was really possibly Christopher Reeve's best performance as Superman. That scene alone.
Yeah, it is a powerful scene, and it's a shame that they had to do away with it. Do you know the story behind why they did that?
No, let's hear it.
So, all right. So obviously Marlon Brando was the biggest star in that film. And he had quite a few conditions. One of which was that he gets $3.7 million for 2 weeks of work.
Which is unheard of at that time.
It absolutely unheard of at that time. And on top of that, he wanted 11.75, so almost 12% of first dollar gross. So before anybody else gets paid, almost 12% off the top of any ticket sales. So the Salkinds agreed to do that for him, and just so that they could get him. And when the movie was released, they had paid him the $3.75 million, but they never paid him any of the back end royalties. So Marlon Brando decided to file an injunction, and he said, "You can't use my likeness in Superman 2 at all. And on top of that, I'm going to sue you for $50 million. And so they went to court, and they had to halt production for, I think, 5 months. They went to court, and they ultimately they got the cease and desist thrown out, but they still had to pay him, I think, like $13 million or something like that. They had to settle. It's either 13 or 15 million, but they had to like pay out a settlement for not paying out like his percentage. So rather than to try to go through the headache of convincing him for the rights, to continue with the footage that they had, Richard Lester had the idea of like, well, why don't we just use the mother and have her tell Clark all of these things and explain all these things. Yeah. And by that time, Richard Donner was excised from the project. So he wasn't a part of the project. He had been fired. A number of other members of the crew had left out of loyalty to Donner, including the script doctor, Tom Mankiewicz. And so they hired 2 other screenwriters to come in and retool that scene and rewrite it. And that's why the dialogue is different. That's why the nature of that scene is different. And it's just missing some key components. So, that, you didn't realize at the time because you only had the one version, but after seeing the Donner cut, don't get me wrong, the Lester version's still good. The Lester version's still good. Don't get me wrong. I am not at all bashing the Lester version, but as you said, man, it's just now that we got this Donner cut, like, wow, like it's. I just have to say it's better for the most part. There is one thing I'm going to get to. We're getting closer, but now the Battle of Metropolis. Right. There is one big difference I noticed, and I absolutely loved it. So you remember in the Lester version where forgive me, who's the big dude, the big Kryptonian? Non. So he's flying at Superman, and Superman's flying towards him, and then Superman in the Lester version, he does this really awkward like spin kick. It's like very awkward, where Superman's body like tilts like 180, and he does this awkward kick, and then he flies, and then Non flies back and hits the Coca-Cola sign. Right. And then the Donner cut, straight up Mortal Kombat. Superman uppercuts him like a bitch. Bam! And he goes flying backwards and tumbling backwards into the. I'm like, yes! Right. That was awesome. Yeah, straight I agree. Up uppercut, man. That was great. Yeah, so much better. I mean, the fight scenes are much better in the Donner cut, I think. Yeah. And I think that you could attribute that to budget. So, you figure if they had filmed all of that stuff before they filmed pretty much anything else. They used a big chunk of the budget on that. So by the time it got into Richard Lester's hands and he had to redo a lot of that footage, probably didn't have the same kind of budget to pull off the same thing. So he's like, oh, we'll just kick the guy or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just, don't get me wrong, I still like that battle either way. But in the Donner cut, when you see that uppercut, you feel it. Like, that was brutal. It was so well done. And then finally, we're gonna get to the one big difference, and this is probably gonna be the topic of controversy. All right, but before we get to that, okay, actually, this is gonna be pretty controversial. So, the one thing I love that the Donner cut did, and it was the obvious thing, and it was done right. The throwing the S scene was taken out. Thank God.
Yes.
I hate that scene. I hate it as much as I love Superman 2. I hate throwing the S. It's stupid. In this version, they take it completely out. Thank God. Mark, please, with your wealth of Superman knowledge, please give us the history behind that awkward scene, please.
So there's a lot of those kind of scenes that Spengler put in, because you have to remember that he had to go behind Donner and like redo certain things that the Salkinds just didn't like, that they were just like, you know, part of the reason why Donner left is because he didn't want to make the movie that they wanted. And so and then also he had a separate vision where he wanted to make it a little more of a kid's movie. Like he wanted to make it a little more comic booky and campy and stuff like that. And so neither one of those, maybe Donner had a history with Superman comics, but Lester didn't. And so, and I don't think the Salkinds did either. And so they threw in a lot of extra things that really didn't have anything to do with the character. Like when the Kryptonians point at something and they can have like something like float. Like they have this like telekinesis that's like not a Kryptonian power. You know, like things like that, or the scene where they start teleporting.
The Donner cut, they kill the kid in downtown. He threw like the siren, and then killed the kid taking off on the horse. That was another difference too. I forgot.
Yeah, and they thought that at the time that was going to be too much for audiences, especially since you have a lot of little kids.
I can understand.
I totally get that.
I get that.
Totally
I'm not wrong. It's cool to see now, but
like even now, like when I watch it, I'm just like, man, that is like cold-blooded. Like that is something that a villain would do. But
she's like, and now he won't become a man. Like,
right?
Damn, bitch!
Yeah. just ruthless,
killed a
right?
Boy, like,
yeah, for no reason.
Yeah.
And so at the time that was filmed, they were like, no, that's definitely got to go. So they cut
I understand that. I can understand from like marketing and for at the time a PG release for what you could say it is a family movie. You know,
right?
I get it. But then you see it in this version, like, oh damn, is that what Donner really wanted? Like, well then I was like, well yeah, this is also the man that did The Omen, so okay.
Yeah, he was making a movie for adults to enjoy.
Yeah,
does that
sound familiar to anybody right now? Just saying.
What do you mean?
He's trying to make a movie for adults. Does that sound familiar? Zack Snyder, Josh Whedon. Just saying. Okay, go ahead. That's all
I guess I can see. Yeah, I can see that. So they were making two separate movies. Now it's interesting. What's interesting to me is that Lester was initially brought on as like a second unit director, and his main job was really just to be a liaison between Donner and the Salkinds, because he like refused to, there was a point where he just refused to talk to them. He's like, I can't deal with them. So he was like the go-between for them. And then when they had decided that they had had enough of him, he just kind of took over and he just like executed his own vision, you know? And so it would be interesting to see what would have happened if they continued to like work together. Like if Donner had never been fired, but he took some of Spencer's ideas, like would it have been a better film, or would it have turned out to be sort of
but
like
still, but where the hell did the throw in the S like come from? Like whose idea was that? And like what? And explain like how is that like a power of like? I don't know. I'm just there's so many questions, man.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, you know, like a lot of these powers are not. They're not like from the publication history at all. They're just sort of made up for that moment by.
I can take myself out for a minute. Like the controlling telekinetic thing. That doesn't bother me too much. Okay, I can take my nerd nitpicking out for a minute, but I can't for the life of me throwing the S. I can't. Like that makes no sense to me. Like it's just like it was like an inconvenience. Like all he does is like a saran wrap. Just like let me get. How could you do this to Zod? Like, oh come on, like what? It's just so off-putting. I'm so glad they took it out, but like, why was it there to begin with? It's like the one biggest flaw of this. Don't get me wrong, movie's great, but that's just one scene that makes zero sense and just like shouldn't be there. Like, my God, I still feel like Superman 2 is the perfect sequel, but that scene, the throwing the S, is just so. Oh my God! Whoa!
I didn't mind it so much as a kid, though. Like I was just like, because I didn't know that much about comics. I wasn't reading comics at that time, so I really legitimately thought that was something that he could do. Like, wow, he could take the symbol off his chest and throw it, you know, like, and so it worked. You know what I mean? Like it at the time, it was just like, you know, I thought it was cool, but now that I'm older and I see it, it's just like, why did they put that in there? You know,
and you can see the memes everywhere. And then funny off topic. I remember before Injustice came out, the game, like some of the jokes on the internet before the game came out saying, "Hey, is Superman gonna be able to throw the S?" Like,
they should like incorporate some of that stuff because, like, one thing you could say, yeah, like I'll say this, like one thing that you can say about at least the first two Superman films is that they set the tone for Superman for a long time after that, and even now, like you get like certain lines and certain scenes that are like throwbacks to those movies.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, so,
because if you play the first Injustice, the first one, General Zod is a playable character in the first Injustice. Well, technically he's DLC, but he's still in the first Injustice game. And when you win with General Zod, he says the famous line, "I win, I always win." Yeah. And he's like, and you see him like in front of a what I believe is supposed to be a Kryptonian crowd, and he's like, and he's just like, you know, celebrating his victory. But he says that line that was famously said in Superman 2.
Right. And then another example is in the most recent Death of Superman animated film that came out a couple of years ago. There's a scene where Superman has like saved Lois from like a helicopter crash, and he's badly wounded, and he's like about to collapse, and Lois rushes over to him and says, "I've got you." And then he says, "You got me, who's got you?" And that is an iconic line from the first movie where Superman saves Lois from falling from a helicopter. It's just like little throwbacks like that I think that still occur that are like that are really cool. Even actually, like
I got two more for you. This one's gonna be blasphemy though. So in Batman and Robin, I know it's a bad movie, but there's that one scene where Dick Grayson says, "Hey, I got you," and then his grapple hook falls off, and then Alicia Silverstone does it, and then she's like, "No, I got you."
Right.
So that was one that you mentioned there.
Right.
And then another one, again, another line that was, oh my gosh, I just forgot. I just had it in my head. I forgot. Oh my God, please forgive me. So there was Batman and Robin. Oh, so in Wonder Woman, and Gal Gadot, the Wonder Woman movie, the scene where she saves Steve Trevor from the bullet was an homage to Superman 1, where Clark stops the bullet in the alley. Right. So that's a cool thing that in the DCEU that they did a throwback to the first Christopher Reeve Superman movie.
Yeah, I mean it's influenced, not just future Superman movies, but like you said, like other comic book films in that way. Even the character Miss Tessmacher, who's played by Valerie Perrine, who's like the assistant, the girlfriend of Gene Hackman, of Lex Luthor. She didn't exist in the comics, but the character became so popular that she actually became a comic book character. And now I think that character exists on the Supergirl series. On the CW.
Okay.
A different iteration of Miss Tessmacher, but yeah, still the same.
So we got the homages out of the way, and of course we got throwing the S out of the way. Now we got to talk about the most controversial thing. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. This is what caused the whole production, the all the crap that fell out in the production of the movie, the endings. Now, this is where I prefer the Lester version. So in the Lester version, Superman kisses Lois and wipes out her memory.
Right.
I really, really love that scene because Margot Kidder's emotional performance, and she breaks down in tears, saying, I know you're Superman. I'm never gonna stop loving you. Blah blah blah. How could I go to work with you every day, knowing who you really are, and blah blah blah. And she's crying and this and that, and it's so well done, well executed. And then Superman erases her memory, and I know it's not the greatest ending, but I like this ending better than the Donner cut. And the Donner cut, okay, I have my problems. So in this version, basically Superman races around the world and undoes everything.
Right.
I got so many problems with that. One, how come he didn't do that earlier? He could have undone Zod and everything else much, much sooner. Why did he wait till everything was over to undo everything? It makes zero sense to me.
Right.
I would have liked it better if he just didn't undo the time thing and just flew away.
Right.
I would have been okay with that. I didn't like the whole running around the world undoing everything that happened. And the other thing that really bothered me, I thought that was poorly executed, why the hell did, after the fact that he flew around the world, then you get to the diner scene where he gets revenge on the trucker? That made zero sense. I probably wouldn't have hated it as much if they didn't throw the trucker scene after the fact that he undid everything. It made zero sense. In the lesser version, it made much more sense in the lesser version.
I agree.
So, Mark, go ahead. What thoughts?
So, yeah. So, I have the same opinion, but for a slightly different reason. So, in the original Superman movie, he does the same thing to undo Lois's death, right? And even as a little kid, I thought that was stupid. Like, you can't reverse time by just flying really fast and changing the rotation of the Earth. That would just cause environmental problems. It wouldn't make time go backwards. And to see it done, but let's say that you accepted that, right? Like, let's say you were willing to suspend your disbelief enough to just let that go. To see it a second time just makes it beyond ridiculous. Yeah. And so I don't know what made Donner think that would be a good idea unless the idea was to just do that once anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Because, originally it was just supposed to be one film anyway. So maybe that particular scene was only originally supposed to just take place once.
And you're right, that would make more sense if it was just done once. Yeah, I could be a little bit more accepting to that. Yeah,
but my bigger problem is that we wind up seeing it twice. We see it in Superman the movie, and then it's like, oh, okay, this worked this time, so let's just do it another time. It just didn't, like, it just came off as cheap. So I do think that Lester had the right idea by doing it the way that he did. And initially I had a problem with
because it doesn't make sense. Since when could Superman wipe people's memories away?
Well, I found out later that there's actually precedent in the comic books of him doing that. Like, I think it's Action Comics 360 or 350. I can't remember the exact
Superman
number.
Encyclopedia.
Yeah, he actually does that to Lois in the comics. And so there was a history of that Lester found out, and he was able to use that as a means of wiping her memory. And so I do like that version much better. It makes much more sense. It's much better executed. like I said, it's like one of the few things that I think Richard Lester did better.
Agreed.
Another thing that I think he did a lot better was the title sequence. So Donner's version wasn't bad, but it's just all it is just title cards going across the screen in space. Where Lester had he was basically giving you a recap of Superman 1.
Yep.
Which was brilliant because it was like, for anybody who hasn't seen it, or if you saw it a couple years ago and you don't remember what happened, here's what happened. Here's what led up to this point, right?
Yeah.
So what I think is cool about that is that you get sort of a reprise of that with Spider-Man 3. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man or Sam Raimi Spider-Man. They do the exact same thing in that. And to me, that's like a callback to that. And
they did in the second one too, but they used stills and artwork in the second one. The third one uses footage,
right?
Yeah.
So that those things, I think that Lester did way better than Don, and so
Agreed.
I gotta give him respect for that.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, both endings are a little out there, but Lester's version, I can live with. The Donner cut, I can't. It bothers me. But as far as that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't ruin it for me because I love the rest of the movie so much, and more Marlon Brando, more violence, better execution, better dialogue. But the ending is a glaring difference, and is that what kind of caused the rift between everybody in the studio and Donner and everybody else too, and the writers and everything?
I think that was a big part of it. I think that the two things that really caused the major rift were creative differences and budget, because Donner wanted these big grand scenes and he was eating up tremendous amount of the budget, so much in fact that the Salkinds had to keep going back to the studio to be like, hey, we need more money. And it caused a huge problem. There was also a third producer there named Pierre Spengler who had been brought in that didn't really get along with anybody, and he and Donner had a huge falling out. And Spengler was talking to somebody from Variety and said that how he was really excited to work with Richard Donner and this and that. And so when Variety approached Donner about it and said, hey, this guy Spengler said all these great things about you, Donner's reply was, well, if he's part of it, I'm out. I'm done. And so it became this him or me kind of a thing, either he goes or I goes. And the Salkinds had been Ilya Salkind had been childhood friends with Pierre Spengler, and so he's I can't backstab this guy, so Donner's got to go.
Okay, so in closing thoughts here, comparing the two versions, what do you have to say overall about both versions of the film and how you feel, at the end of the day, how you feel about both of these versions and Superman 2 alone?
Okay, so the Lester version has a special place in my heart because that's the version I grew up with. I love it for nostalgic reasons. Seeing it as an adult, it definitely has its problems, has its things that I can do without. But it is a complete film, and I enjoy it, for that reason. That said, I think the Donner cut showed tremendous potential for what Superman could have been. I like that color grading more. It's deeper reds and blues. It's much more majestic looking.
Yeah.
It had some of the best performances from Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder.
Agreed.
and Marlon Brando. I think it's a shame that they couldn't find a way to blend the best parts from both directors.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel exactly. There's one thing I agree. I feel the exact same way you do about both versions of this movie. I'm just going to say to everybody right now, again, Superman 2, quintessential sequel, quintessential, Superman movie, quintessential sequel in general. It's just again, we talk Empire Strikes Back, we talk Godfather 2, but man, Superman 2 has got to be in the conversation. All right, it's just I love everything about these movies, both versions. Again, at the end of the day, I'm going with the Donner cut. With the exception of the ending, I'm going with the Donner cut. So I have to say this right now. I'm ready to throw this card at you, Mark. Catching you off guard right here, right now. Rank, including both versions of the Donner Cut. Rank all 5 Superman movies from Superman 1 to Superman Returns. Rank them.
Ooh, okay. That's not difficult. So I think I'm gonna go with Superman 2, the Lester version, Superman 2, the Donner Cut, Superman the movie, Superman Returns, and then Superman 3, and then Superman 4. Superman 4's got to be dead last.
Okay. I got to switch. Okay, so my lineup's a little different.
Okay.
So here we go. The way I rank all 5 movies, including both versions. So at the end of the day, again, I'm still processing the Donner Cut. I'm still processing it, but for right now, because both movies are fresh in my mind, I'm going Donner Cut number 1, Lester Cut number 2. Again, doesn't matter which version. Superman 2 is still the best one. Doesn't matter which version.
Right.
So that being said, after that, I'm going Superman the movie. And by default, and I'm not a fan of anything really after this one, by default, I'm going Superman Returns. Then, I'm going Superman 4. I can get some enjoyment out of Superman 4 and laugh. And I think Superman 3 is dead last the worst one. And you can laugh at me. I'm just going to throw this out there. You can laugh at me. But when I first saw Superman 3 on TV, I can remember like it was yesterday. I was 5 years old. I was still living in Syracuse, Liverpool, New York, which is right near Syracuse. I was living there growing up. And I remember on WPIX, the New York station, the Superman 3 was on TV. And I happened to catch like the second half.
Right.
Keep in mind, I'm 5 years old. The scene where the woman gets sucked by the computer terrified me. And when I was 5 years, it straight up terrified me. She creeped me out like nothing I couldn't believe I ever seen. I was creeped out by it. Looking back, I can laugh. Anywho, that being said, the reason why I'm picking Superman 4 over Superman 3, Superman 4 is one of those movies that you can enjoy, you can laugh at, and just, Nuclear Man, something. It's so bad it's good.
Right.
And of course we still have Gene Hackman in there. It's like I for that reason, between Gene Hackman and laughing at Nuclear Man, I gotta put Superman 4 above Superman 3.
Oh man, that's a hard pill for me to swallow. We
can have a Rage in the Cage between Superman 3 and Superman 4.
We might have to do that. It's just I just feel like
Dion
Superman
McGill, if you're listening, you need
to
be the tiebreaker. Dion McGill is our tiebreaker for Rage in the Cage worst Superman movie. That's how we gotta do it.
All right, we'll do that.
I know. I was waiting. I had a feeling. I just had a feeling that we're gonna rank them different, so I couldn't wait to do that.
Yeah.
So listen, everybody, I really, really hope you enjoyed this 2-parter look back of Superman 2. It was an absolute joy looking back at these movies, and Mark, it was an absolute joy talking about this movie with you, and so much I learned from you. So thanks so much for taking the time to discussing all this stuff with me. It was an absolute blast. It really was, dude.
Well, I mean, I love everything about, Superman and these were some of my favorite movies growing up. It was fun researching, and finding out all of these sort of behind the scenes things that happened. And so, this is a movie that you could talk about for several hours. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't even scratch the surface on. And so I had an absolute blast. Like I said, at the beginning of the show, I've been waiting a very long time to do this as one of our look backs. And so I'm really glad that we got a chance to finally get there. Yes.
So again, high recommendation. If you guys haven't seen these movies, shame on you. I feel like they've aged pretty well. I know the special effects are not on par with today's standards, but I still feel like they hold up pretty good. You can find Superman 2 on HBO Max. It's readily available. Obviously, you can buy it on Blu-ray and 4K. Now, the Donner Cut, it's a damn shame HBO Max hasn't put the Donner Cut on HBO Max. They should. but you can get the Donner Cut, the 4K version or the Blu-ray. It's readily available on Amazon, but you can rent it. If you're just curious and just want to rent it, it's only $4 on Amazon Prime to rent. So highly recommend it from your boy Jay. Superman 2 still holds up very, very well. The best Superman movie, possibly the best Superman movie ever to this day.
I agree. Either version, whichever one floats your boat. I mean, if I were you, I would watch them both. It's fun to compare them, compare what scenes work better and, what color palette works better and all of that. But if you only have time for one, I mean, I would probably go with the theatrical, but the Donner Cut is all things considered, it's a fantastic movie. And I love the dialogue. I love some of the scenes in it. It's definitely worth a watch if you have the time.
And of course, we just want to say right now before we close this out, Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, rest in peace. You guys will always be, the quintessential Clark and Lois. Me, I mean, the Superman movies came out before I was born, but when I was born into an era where Christopher Reeve was Superman. Nobody else was. That was the era I was born in, and it took a really, really long. There is no replacing Christopher Reeve, but it took a really, really long time for us to get another great Superman. It really did. It was basically my whole adulthood. We didn't get another great Superman until about 7-8 years ago. So
right. I agree with that. I agree with everything you just said. I mean, Christopher Reeve to me will always be Superman. No shade on Henry Cavill because he's fantastic.
He is.
But to me, Reeve was the one that made the character come to life. And I can't imagine anybody else from that time doing as great a job as he did. And so, definitely he's missed by me and probably by a lot of Superman fans.
Yes, and like I said, it's definitely a look back. Like I said, watch both of these versions because there's so much history and there's so much rich goodness with these two movies alone. And I'm sure when we eventually get that Snyder Cut next year, we're gonna be comparing, both versions just like we're comparing these two right now.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Day. That's actually gonna be a lot of fun too.
Absolutely. So again, thank you to everybody who spent the time listening to us. This look back here, we have plenty more to come. We got Psycho 60th anniversary we want to do for Halloween, and of course the mighty Zach Householder is going to be coming on NerdCage Live Thursday the 29th. If you're listening to this before the 29th, please be at that stream. We're gonna have a field day doing that too. Yeah, that's going to be one for the ages. Zach's a good friend of mine. I haven't spoken with him in a while. I'm really, really excited to have him on the show. He's really into nerd culture like a lot of us. He's into films and cartoons and comics and all that good stuff. So we're going to have a really good discussion with him. And we're also going to ask him about the new album and about Titan Audio Project and all the new things that he's doing. So look out for that. Awesome. So before we go, we ask you to pretty please like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell and spread this shit like Silva. So to USA, from Louisville to Syracuse to Metropolis, and to all of our friends and fans around the world at NerdCage Live, enjoy life, stay safe, and good night.
Sayonara.
Ooh, trying to get out of the NerdCage, are ya? Well, before you go, hit that subscribe button. And if you're really intrigued, ring that bell. Thank you for dropping by. Until next time, tell everyone you know about NerdCage Live!